evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. This evening we are spending time with the magnificent Rob Wentz. Rob Wentz, aka Rob Z, is a personal development life coach. Rob's mission is to reveal the great leader inside of you, the leader who embraces change and creates an impact in the world. This transformation comes from mastering communication in your life. Communication is so important when you're building relationships with the Creator, yourself, and people in your life. If you can't communicate, you can't connect. And if you can't connect, you can't create impact. You have a relationship with everything, including you. The quality of your relationships depends on the effectiveness of your communication. Through radio, podcasting, social media, content creation, and hosting seminars and conferences, Rob has spent 20 plus years in broadcasting and understands the value of effective communication. Lit, Life Coaching, Lead, Impact, Transform. www.leadimpacttransform.com. Welcome, Rob. Good evening, everyone, and welcome at Meticulous Moments. We are here today in a session with the wonderful and amazing Rob Wentz. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you so much, Jay, for having me. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me be a part of this.
Thank you for taking the time to share this, your knowledge and experience with us. We are delighted to have you. And I want to ask you to please just introduce yourself to the audience.
Absolutely. So my name is Rob Wentz, but as you can see, it says Rob Z. So I was in broadcasting, radio broadcasting for 20 years. Rob Z was my radio name, and it stuck, and I like it. And it was simple and easy to remember. So I kept the Rob Z name going into digital marketing. 5 years ago, I jumped into the digital marketing space and spent a lot of time doing social media marketing and advertising, building websites, things of that nature. And along the way of my radio career, I built up a decent social media following. So I thought it'd be a really nice branch to jump into digital marketing. And then about a couple of years ago, I found that I really needed to do something that added purpose to people's lives. I was no longer content just creating ads on Facebook or Instagram or building somebody's website, but I really wanted to help people. I wanted to serve them. I wanted to add value to their lives. So I created the company Lit Life Coaching, which is Lead, Impact, and Transform. That is what the Lit stands for. Those are three things that mean a lot to me in my life. Becoming a leader of my own life, creating impact in the lives that I touch and in my own life. And then transformation, change. Something that I struggled with for a long time was changing and adapting to change and embracing change. And I feel that if there's one thing people really have a hard time with in life, it's embracing change. I want to help people embrace that and build better communication with themselves, with the divine, and also with others. And that brought me to where I am today talking to you.
I love that. The name Rob Z has a lovely ring to it. So I'm so glad that you kept it.
Oh, thank you.
And I resonate with what you said about people adapting, to the new normal or to the hybrid space that we are in. I think you are really addressing something that is kind of a vacuum in society at the moment. Because if we look back from COVID, some people adapted quite well. But for others, it wasn't an easy transition. And those are the people that need, your guidance and your input to really get them to the place where they once again feel comfortable, like they're in the zone, and that they don't feel like, being a fish out of the water. So you're going to address that specific need, and I commend you for that. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And I feel, I went through a lot, as most people did, through COVID. It was one of the things that brought me to coaching. It was one of the things that inspired me to reach out. And, I've gone through a decent amount in my life, and I wanted to share what I had gone through and help other people walk through the things that they're walking through. Kind of making your message was kind of the idea behind why I decided to get into coaching. And I feel like God also led me there, led me to that place.
Amen. Absolutely. God gets the glory, and he does his work through his people. Amen to that. I love that.
Amen.
My next question to you would be, how old were you when you became a leader? What was that significant moment in your life when the penny dropped and you realized, well, you are called to be in a leadership position?
That's a great question, because I don't think it happened for me until later in life. I had my son when I was 31, and I can distinctly remember as his mom was pregnant. I remember thinking, boy, when we have Max, his name is Max, and he's 8 now. I remember thinking, I need to do something different with my life. I need to stop being so self-absorbed and so wrapped up in my stuff, putting me first, because I didn't even intentionally put me first, but that was my default. I was first, and I knew I was going to bring a child into this world, and I could tell even before I had him that it was going to change me drastically. But I would say when Max was born, that was really when I felt like I started to step into the leader role, where I started to take more control of my own life. So when I think of leadership, first and foremost, I think of it as like being a leader of my own life and then helping others lead. And I started to take a lot of personal responsibility at that point, which I said was like 8 years ago. So I'd say my journey in leadership has been about a 9-year journey. About a year before he was born, I could really start feeling myself step into that place. But once he was born, I knew that I had to become a leader for myself and take that personal responsibility, because I didn't want him to grow up, and I didn't want him to grow up without knowing the things that I knew. And I wanted him to have the knowledge that I didn't have whenever I was young. I wanted him to grow up with that knowledge, so it would change and shape the way that he looked at the world and the way that he lived his life and the way that he had it would change his personal relationship with himself and his relationship with the world around him. So I'd say, it's been about a 9-year journey of leadership.
Fantastic answer. And you touched on two very important points for me. And the first point is that leadership really starts with self. Mm-hmm. So that moment that you realized you were going to be accountable for another human being, you did introspection and you started to lead yourself so that you could lead him ultimately when he arrived. And that brings me to the other point that I was thinking about, is that leadership starts at home. A child has to see that leadership in their home for them to develop and to kind of fit into the systems out there and to also become successful leaders themselves. So I commend you on that, making that decision, sticking with it, leaving everything that you used to follow and portray and do behind, and really focusing and saying, well, now I'm responsible for another human being, and I want to make it the best journey for my son, for you, for instance, for Max. So that's commendable. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. It felt like a necessary journey. I could even pinpoint from a younger age. Like I always felt like I was a late bloomer, and I don't know where that came from, if I was just telling myself that or if that was true. But I always felt like as life went on, I was going to do something great with my life. And I don't know, I couldn't really explain what that meant or what that was, but I always kind of felt like I had that inside of me. Because when I was younger, I did not have self-confidence. I did not have good self-esteem.
Yeah.
I was very unsure of myself, and I let the external world really control who I was. And I didn't know any better, and I think that's kind of how we grew up. A lot of people, they're not taught these things, so they have to learn them as time goes on, and you spend a lot of your life undoing what has already been done.
True.
And I don't know, without that journey for me personally, I don't even know what kind of leader I would be. I don't even know who I would be. So I'm very grateful for that journey. But I recognize that the things that I lacked when I was young shaped who I am today, and it brought me to this place. So it's all a necessary part of the puzzle.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a wonderful testimony, and that brings hope to people and listeners and the audience who are facing these similar challenges, because a leader doesn't necessarily always have everything together from the get-go. Yeah. Leadership is a journey, like you've said. It becomes a lifestyle. And, when you're a leader, I just said so the same thing to someone in another session, is you are committed to a life of lifelong learning, personally and professionally, that development. So if you're a leader out there and you feel maybe you don't have everything together yet, you will never get to the place where you feel you are on par. You will always keep on learning. There will always be stronger leaders than you, which is a good thing, because they shape us and they mold us and they help us. And you'll figure it out as you go along, like Rob and I did.
Yeah. And you spend, your whole life continuing to figure it out. It's like once you think you figured some stuff out, then it just keeps going. It's a beautiful thing. It seems to be one of the points of life, is to keep on learning. And especially with lifelong learning, I think that I got stuck in a mode at one point of lifelong learning, but not lifelong application. And I think that's a big piece of the puzzle too, is some people really love to learn, but we must apply those things that we learn. And I think we hear the term lifelong learner a lot, but the application is just as, if not more important.
Yeah, the practicality of taking what you've learned and really putting it into your life, sowing that also into other people's lives. Very valid point. Thank you very much for raising that.
You're welcome.
We both believers. And we've established that since our first virtual coffee. So in your opinion, which leadership principles do we learn about in the Bible?
Oh, wow. As far as the leadership principles that come up for me, the tenets of the Bible, I'm just going to use the most simple tenet of the Bible to start this point. But it's to love the Lord God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself.
Amen.
And that means something different to me now. I guess it doesn't mean something different, but the meaning of it keeps becoming more defined as my life goes on and as my journey in faith goes on.
Yeah.
And right now I'm at this point of this idea of planting seeds, right? So as a leader, we should be constantly planting seeds everywhere in our life. And I found there's 4 components for me in planting seeds, right? One is planting seeds is about communication and about good communication and about fostering effective communication in your life. So one aspect of that communication is your communication with the divine, whether you call it God or whatever word you want to use, but your relationship that you have with the Creator, the time that you actually spend with the Creator, the time you actually spend with God, learning about Him and communicating with Him and feeling His presence, that's extremely important for me because seeds are planted in those moments. Then there's also the aspect of planting seeds in yourself. So building yourself up, whether that's, affirmations or whatever that looks like for you, but things that build you up personally so that you are strong enough and your cup's running over so you can pour back into other people.
Amen.
And I always feel like when they say love your neighbor as yourself, we forget about this one part where it says love yourself.
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of people who are Christian follow and love God. They really work hard in loving others, but they often will they'll often leave out, or maybe they just won't work as hard on this part of loving yourself and really focusing on, like, of course, service to others is going to bring love for yourself, and it's going to help to build you up, but making sure that your cup's running over so you're able to give more to others. Make that an important part of your life. So spending time with yourself, spending time building yourself up. The other aspect of that, of course, in planting seeds is going out and planting seeds in people's lives. So every single day when you're living your life, how are you planting seeds in people's lives? How are you showing up in people's lives? Are you showing them love? Are you showing them graciousness and gratitude, and allowing them to be who they are, and being gentle and kind, also being correcting when you need to, but have loving correction, those sorts of things. Planting those seeds is so important, and that's fundamental to who we are as humans. Like if you're full of, if you're filthy rich with money, but you don't share that money and you don't circulate that money and help others with it, and you're just hoarding it, what's the point of you having money? So if you have lots of love, and this seems to be the case, when you have lots of love, and the people that I know that are overflowing with love in their life, they can't help but give it out to other people.
Yes.
So you constantly plant those seeds. But then also, I think a really important part of leadership is receiving. So I know so many people, and this was me for a long time, like I would get a compliment and I'd say, oh, thank you, but I wouldn't really receive it. Or I might not even believe the compliment that somebody gave me. So I would just brush it off. And that became a thing for me that I started to notice. Why am I not allowing people's compliments? Why am I not allowing people who are trying to build me up, who are trying to plant seeds in my life? Why am I not letting that sink in? And I'm in a men's group, but the leader of our men's group, whenever we would pray for him, he would say things very intentionally, like, I receive that. Thank you. I accept that. I receive that.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that myself. And I started to be able to feel the difference whenever I would say that. When somebody would say something kind to me, I would actually take time to receive it. This just happened earlier today. I was having an amazing conversation, and the guy that I was talking to was just giving me great compliments, great advice, really pouring into me. And after the conversation was over, I spent 15 minutes just receiving it. Wow. So I spent 15 minutes by myself, just thanking God, giving the glory to God, and then receiving what I had been given. And I think that's so important, because we have to let those things soak in, because that helps to build us up. It builds our self-esteem, builds our self-confidence, builds our self-worth. So I would say that, as far as like leadership tenets from the Bible, that core aspect of the Bible for me, and from the teachings of Jesus, is incredibly important. But also Romans 12:2, which I feel is really powerful, to be transformed, which is why I have transform in the LIT acronym, to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Right. So constantly going from glory to glory, letting God transform you by renewing your mind, by getting rid of the old you and implanting the spirit version of you, or revealing, I should say, because it's always been there, but we have to kind of undo the layers that we put on over top of it. So that's another one for me that's really, really important, because there's no better feeling than when you've renewed a part of your mind, when you've uncovered a part of you, a part of your heart that's like been there the whole time, that we've kind of lost throughout periods of our life. We go through stuff in our life, and I think our heart sort of gets shut down or blocked out or forgotten about. And it's really important to rediscover, we all have this unlimited potential, this unlimited love as a child, and spending time to really uncover that limitlessness of ourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you for that wonderful answer. You've got me thinking in a few directions now. And I love that. I love to hear new opinions. And I agree with you, leadership and biblical leadership principles do include planting of seeds. Some leaders plant the seeds. Paul says that to us in the New Testament. Someone else comes along and they water that seed. And really, we accumulate new leaders through that, because when that seed starts to sprout, a new leader is born. So that is an amazing analogy that you used. I love that. I see that in my mind. And another important thing that you mentioned was that we are not as leaders only there to validate others, but always also to an extent ourselves. Because I think a healthy leader has a healthy self-image, not in the sense of having a prideful thought about themselves, but a healthy self-image really rubs off. I speak with the young ones. I work with youth often, teenagers, and I always tell them it rubs off. You should be very careful who you spend your time with, because subconsciously it rubs off. And I think it applies also in the positive sense. If a leader has a good self-image and is available and open to, for instance, like you mentioned, to receiving compliments and internalizing them and letting it build themselves, that is going to rub off on all the people that they lead. And that's an amazing concept. And we find it in the Bible. So thank you. That was a wonderful, wonderful, impactful answer.
You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did. And it's
and
really,
yeah. I was also thinking, you just mentioned a second ago, sometimes you're the one watering those seeds. Sometimes you're the one who is there for the harvest. Not saying that I would not love and have been a part of those phases of people's lives, but I always keep my mind, and boy, I can plant more seeds wherever I go. But sometimes you're watering, sometimes you're harvesting. But life's amazing in that sense that, man, you really have. When you start to look at life in a different way, you have so many opportunities to help people, to encourage people. And so many people get so little encouragement, and they need more encouragement in their life.
Yeah. And you make a valid point, Rob, because it's wonderful to water and to harvest, but if we don't plant in the first place, it starts with that action, planting that seed. That's the most important phase. Mm-hmm. So as leaders in the audience, listen to the words of wisdom that Rob is rendering to us. Plant those seeds of leadership with whoever you work with. If it's someone you work with, if it's someone that you are leading in another capacity, if you're a youngster and you're watching this, plant the leadership seeds in the lives of your peers. I don't think a leadership role has an age attached to it. Mm-hmm. I've seen little children lead other little children before. And if we think back to Jesus in the Bible, I mean, he was also a teenager when he started to teach in the synagogues and, get the attention of the religious leaders in that time. So leadership is not connected to age. But as long as you take that action, when you feel that unction to be a leader, take action on that and use it.
And if I could include something to that, when my son and I pray at night, I always pray for God to make us great leaders. And something I've seen from him that just gives me confirmation. This is not a brag or anything like that. It's just like I saw confirmation in the work that I do with myself and the what my son also receives from, I would hope, from being around me and learning some of these principles. Like I've seen him with younger kids, and he will compliment younger kids. He's very kind to them. He's very helpful. So he takes jujitsu, and I will see him help the younger kids, be supportive in class, and really be selfless, which I think to myself, was I selfless as a kid? Maybe when I was really young, I don't remember, but I can remember being very selfish. So I see him being selfless, and it really touches my heart, because it's like, okay, when you see those signs that you're on the right path, what a beautiful thing. To have that realization and to see the work paying off is amazing.
Amazing. Your leadership in his life now impacting his peers. Yeah. And I said this to Warren Ho as well, and I think I mentioned it to Jose Escobar as well, about the martial arts, that I believe that martial arts should actually become a part of the curriculum, because it teaches selfless leadership, and it teaches humility as well. So strong leaders are formed in dojos, whether people know that or not, and whether they believe it or not. So your leadership at home Your leadership started with yourself. It ciphered out into your home, Rob. It went, into the life of your child, Max. And now it's ciphering over into the jiu-jitsu class and his peers and that selfless giving. So it's amazing. It's so beautiful when it all comes together.
It really is. Yeah. It really is. It's incredible.
Incredible. Now, kindly explain. I saw that you did, I think it was a live or a video the other day on Facebook with the analogy of the father and the son and how they were looking at this boat or this yacht out on the ocean. Would you care to explain that to the audience? I loved that. It was amazing.
Oh, sure. And I'm not going to claim ownership of that. I heard that from somewhere else, but it really, it really touched me. And yeah, the concept is, this dad and his son are on a little like rowboat out in the water, and the son sees like a big ocean liner, that might like a cargo ship way out in the ocean, and it seems so small and so minuscule and tiny. And the son, says to the dad, "Boy, look at that tiny little boat way out there. It's so far away I can barely see it." Yeah. And over time, they're sitting in the boat, maybe they're fishing or whatever they're doing, and that boat starts getting closer and closer, and the closer it gets, it's getting bigger and bigger. And by the time it's up to them, it's giant. It's a gigantic ocean liner, just an overwhelmingly huge ship. And the son says, "Wow, Dad, look at how giant that ship is. I had no idea when it was so far away, how big it actually was, how all encompassing it was. Like it's all that I can see now that it is so close to us." And the dad looks at the son and says, "That's exactly how God is like in our lives. So the further God is away from us, he seems meaningless. He doesn't seem like he's making an impact. He doesn't seem like he's helping or contributing. He seems kind of pointless, just out there far away, just doing whatever it is that God does." But then the closer you get to God, which is through relationship, through prayer, through service, through study, and I'm really big on the relationship part. That's a real thing. Like you really must build a personal relationship. Community is also essential, but the personal relationship is incredibly important. The closer you get to God, the bigger he gets. So when he gets closer to you, now he's everything. You see God in everything that you do. You think about God all the time. It's like he's a part of every nook and cranny of your life. He's all encompassing. And it's, I came from a point, I was never an atheist or anything like that, but I've always believed in God. I felt like he was the cargo ship way out in the middle of the ocean. Yes. Sure, God's out there doing something. I don't know what the heck he's doing. Who knows what he's doing? he might be doing something for somebody else, but not for me. I don't know what he's doing. And then the more I build a relationship with him and the years I spend learning about him and learning from others and being around people who understand and teach me, who have incredible faith. And the longer I spend, quiet time building my relationship with God, it's like, he's all I think about. Like he's all that I think about. Like whenever I'm doing things, I put him first, because even coming into this session with you to talk with you, it's like, well, how do you want me, how are you going to move in this? How do you want me to represent you? And please, help guide what I say and help guide how this goes. Hopefully your words come out of me and not my own words, because your words are a lot better than mine.
Always. Amen. Yeah. And that's really a life surrender to God's leadership. Ultimately, God is our leader. He is the ruler of our faith. He is the one that shows us the way. And Jesus, look at the Bible, the leadership that Jesus showed us, the principles that Jesus taught us. I always go back to that. I always think of, situations where he was sometimes between a rock and a hard place, and how he reacted to that. There's so many valuable lessons that we can learn. And yes, the relationship, I was just in a session before our session now, and we were discussing the fact that we cannot live a religion. We have to have a relationship, a personal relationship with God.
Yeah.
It is just something different. Religion is stifling. Relationship gives life. So I agree with you. Everything that we do as a leader, even what we are doing now here, God gets the glory because he guides our steps and our words. And I know he's going to transform lives through us because we are only the vessels.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think of often is like, I was in radio for 20 years, right? So I was on the radio every single day, live on the radio. Yeah. And I would get compliments. So it's been 5 years since I did like my full-time show, and I was on a morning show for 5 years, and I was pretty darn good at what I did. I loved what I did. I had a lot of fun doing it. And my thought was like, if I'm up at 6 a.m. and somebody else is up at 6 a.m. and they're going to a job that they hate and they're driving in their car and I'm saying something funny on the radio that's going to entertain them, I'm doing my job. What a good feeling to give somebody else a good feeling. And I didn't have a relationship with God then, right? Mm-hmm. And I still get compliments to this day from people saying how much they loved my radio show, or how people would just tell me things like how I impacted them or how I pulled them out of a tough situation. Just like I look back on it and I would get these compliments, and so back then I wouldn't receive them, right? I would not receive these compliments from people because I'm like, I'm just on the radio. Like I don't even think I'm that good at what I'm doing. I'm not even really trying that hard. These are the things that I would tell myself, right? Yes. And I look back at it now, and God was working through me all that time. Every day when I was lifting somebody up, every day when I was my personality that God has given me, I was using my personality to lift others up, to make them laugh, to make them think, to touch their heart, whatever that was. Yeah. It wasn't me doing that because I didn't even know that I was doing it. It was God working through me. So when I would hear somebody tell me something that I impacted them with back then, I was like, wow, that's crazy because I barely did anything. Now I look at it like, wow. Now you realize. Even when I was unaware, even when I was so wrapped up and absorbed in myself, God was working through me on a daily basis. Like what a beautiful realization to have, that like he's been there that whole time working. Always behind the scenes, working. Amen. Using us as his vessels to bring greater good. I love that. I absolutely love it. And it brings me to the next question, or rather phrase. Describe authentic leadership. What does that represent to you? What is authentic leadership? Authentic leadership. I think for me, authentic leadership, number one, is leading yourself. So when you are leading yourself according to plan, when you are leading when you're letting, first of all, you're getting out of the way and let God lead you. Yeah. And then you're leading yourself and you're leading others. That's authentic leadership when it's coming from the heart, when you're not trying to control anything, you're actually allowing. And I think real leadership, and I have an amazing mentor. His name's Ray. Ray's I think he's 83. Just a wonderful man. He's done so many amazing things with his life and is such an amazing spirit. And I am so honored to spend a couple hours with him every week. Yeah. And the thing he's drilled into my head over and over and over again is that a great leader helps create leaders, and then he gets out of the way. So great leader builds somebody up. Authentic leadership is giving somebody personal responsibility, teaching personal responsibility to others, giving them personal responsibility and ownership over what they're doing, putting them in the right position where their own unique skills and gifts are going to thrive, and then supporting that. Yeah. Asking questions, asking the right questions, and then getting out of the way. Yeah. And when you do that, right, you build leaders. And once you've planted the seed and watered it in that regard, that person's going to become a leader. Now you don't have to do anything anymore. So he would always say the job of a true leader is really one of the easiest jobs in the world. You build people up. You lead by example, of course, but you build people up. You put them in the right position so their gifts can shine. Yeah. You ask the right questions to uncover the right answers, and then you get out of the way and let them do their thing. Wonderful. Giving them the tools to lead,
but not micromanaging everything that they do.
Yeah, and that's the big misconception of leadership. And I had so many bosses like in radio that I could think of that it was the opposite of leadership, where it was like a controlling leadership, and it's very stifling.
Doesn't work. I had a session with Lieutenant Colonel Oakland McCulloch, and he was talking about how his mentors taught him in the military that, you have the two extremes. You have now the micromanagement, and then you have the chaos. And they really taught him to trust the leaders that you are putting in your teams with the task that you are giving them. And not to promote the chaotic side, but to get as close as you can to the chaos side of things, to make sure and double sure that you don't micromanage, because otherwise you stifle their ideas, their progress, their innovation, and nobody learns a lesson. They stay on the same leadership level that they were before, and they stop having the passion to really do their jobs, because they feel that the leader is just going to change it anyway. So they just sit around and wait for the leader to tell them what to do, and then they do it because they know he's just going to have a problem. So Oakland said his mentors taught him there has to be form and shape and discipline, but try and get away so far away from the micromanage side of things. Get more to the chaotic side of things, but make sure everything still works according to plan. But when you've picked your leaders, give them the freedom to do their jobs. Equip them and then give them the free reins. Yeah,
get out of the way.
Yes.
I also feel like when it comes to leadership, and I would include this in leadership, like you need other people who are calling you out on your stuff. You need some people in your life putting you in check. The self-awareness is so important. And I think like the old cliche that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Isn't that how it goes? Something like that. And it just seems to me like that's so true. If you don't have anybody putting you in check, you're bound to fail, because that's what humans do. So God, number one, have him there putting you in check. But you got to have people around you who love you enough and care about you enough to tell you really what's up. Absolutely.
That truthfulness. And, sometimes what we hear is not pleasant, but it's what we needed to hear, because we want to develop. Leaders want to develop. They have a heart of development, and they want to take what they've learned and transfer it to other people. So my next question to you is, how has your leadership style changed over the course of your life? And you've mentioned that you feel that your leadership journey started before Max was born, about 9 years ago. Now, if you look back to 9 years ago, how you conducted yourself as a leader up to today in this session, were there things that changed significantly? Was it a process? Tell us more.
Well, I think if I had to pick the process, it feels like surrendering has been a big part of my leadership process throughout the years. I've really had to learn how to surrender. And that goes back to the controlling part, right? The micromanaging. Yes. That part of things is like trying to really let go of a lot. And the micromanagement can be really hard. You can have like a really tight grip on it. And I've always put way too much pressure on myself. And I recognize that. So I don't want to put pressure on others. And I think the way we treat ourselves is the way we're going to treat others. So I was kind of, neurotic to myself. I did not treat myself with a lot of love and compassion. I was really unreasonably hard on myself. And that rubbed off on people in my life. Yeah. And I just, really, really don't want to be that person. So I try to work hard at not being that person. And for me, surrendering is a big part of that. Like there's a lot of things in life we have to just surrender over. Not saying I'm not going to work hard, not saying I'm not going to pay attention to what's going on, but surrendering outcomes, surrendering attitudes, surrendering, just surrendering control over, because surrender for me was a really hard one. Forgiveness and surrender were two words that were really hard for me to understand. Intellectually, I got it, but like in practicality, hard for me to get it. And I feel like I have a better grasp on them now than I used to, but I'm still working on them. But I'd say for me, that it's changed because I've learned to surrender more, to understand that I don't know everything, and to understand that sometimes
everything. Yeah.
Sometimes things just aren't going to work out the way that you want them to, and surrendering outcomes. Like, I trust that it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to work out. Not saying, like I said, not saying I'm not going to work at it. Not saying that I'm not going to have an intention or have a vision for what I want. But I also want to let go of the reins and let life take me where I'm supposed to go. And that's for others too.
That's true wisdom. That is so wise, Rob. And I'm learning from that. I always tell people I don't control the waves. I ride them.
Yeah.
I can't.
When you try to control those waves, that sucks. You get beat up all the time. Yeah. Life is rough when you're trying to control wave. When you're trying to fight against the current instead of riding with it. Good Lord, it's terrible.
I know, right? So rather than just, complaining and trying to control everything, just write them and see what the lesson is, and, let it shape you into a better person than you were yesterday. That's what I've learned over the years, because I also, when I started out my leadership journey, there are things that you try and control the outcomes. You do. Because you feel that pressure of the leadership, and it just does not work that way. You can have a foolproof plan, but it's not going to work out or pan out 100% like you've thought, because you are working with people, different people, and you are working with different aspects of leadership, and there are anomalies, and you can't control everything all the time. That's also what I've had to learn. So thank you so much for your answer. I'm learning a lot from you.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you for the compliment. And, I want to throw in something too about, I always find a lot of metaphors from driving, which is really interesting to me. So this just popped in my head right now that, when we're driving, what road rage comes from, like, wanting to control what everybody else is doing on the road. So we're always trying to, control. Other people are always driving too fast or too slow. The traffic lights are set up against me. They're rolling against my life. Like, all of these. It's ridiculous. Like, we're so autonomous in our little cars, thinking that we are in control of everything. And the other part of that is, and this is something that's helped me over the past couple of years to reduce my stress level, leaving early. And understanding that you need to give yourself time and space for life to happen. So when I used to never give myself any time and space, I'd rush around like a madman. And I'd always be angry at everybody on the road and every single traffic light, and everything was working against me, and I'd be late or I'd be right on time if I was lucky. But then I started to realize, wait a minute, if I just, whenever you say to yourself, oh, I have 10 minutes. No, I started saying no. When I say, oh, I still have 10 minutes before I can leave. No, leave right then.
Yeah.
So I started leaving right then, and my stress level dropped by 100%, because no longer was I competing on the road. No longer were the traffic lights bothering me. And the metaphor is that we're not in control of our life. And the more space we let for life to do what it does, the less we're going to feel pressured by life. And it's so important to remember that life doesn't happen in our time. Our time, especially in the United States, where I am, and it might be the same in South Africa, is that everything's in such a rush. Everything's in such a hurry. But life doesn't work like that. God doesn't work like that. He has a whole other game plan of how things go. So giving yourself space, giving yourself time, patience. And I used to pray a lot for patience. And I think somebody told me, be prepared when you pray for patience, because God's going to give you a lot of opportunities to be patient. And that's the case. I got a lot of opportunities to be patient, but it's paid off.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, I think we should all pray for patience. And yes, life is very fast-paced here in South Africa as well. And I think that adds to the stress and the anxiety of individuals like you've explained, because everything is just moving at such an astonishing rate. Yeah. And I think sometimes people don't, it's like they're drowning. They don't have time to come up for air. And that is really when people are in a very bad emotional space. And it affects everything else around them. So yes, we can't control everything. But what we can control is ourselves and the decisions that we make. And that decision, just that small decision of leaving earlier, look at the tremendous result that has had in your life. So self-leadership, again, we're getting to that. So I know the audience is relishing in this information because there are things, dots are connecting for them. Start and look at your situation and do something small in your own capacity that can make, the rush better or make a situation in your life better. I love that. Wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Now, we are both martial arts practitioners. You do jiu-jitsu. I'm into karate. Also, that includes jiu-jitsu, and we do kickboxing and everything. And my question to you is, how does martial arts help leaders to become a better version of themselves?
Man, it's been everything for me. I've learned so much I've only been in jiu-jitsu now for 2 years. Wow. Well, a little over 2 years, but it has taught me so much. One of the biggest things to, like, our trainer, the guy who runs the school, he is really good at reading people and weeding people out. So it's really cool in martial arts. As long as you have a good leader in martial arts, the ego can't last.
Oh, yes.
So anybody who has a big ego, anybody who's in there to kill everybody every day, is not going to last. It's not going to happen. Another thing that I love about martial arts is the patience, right? The patience and time that it takes to learn something. And, when I first started, what's that?
To hone that skill.
Yeah. To hone that it was really hard for me in the beginning because I was nervous and I wrestled when I was in high school. So I had a bit of a wrestling background. I wanted to go like 100 miles an hour, and I found myself getting so worn out so quickly, like more tired than I'd ever been in my entire life. And people would say to me, you got to just slow down. You got to just slow down. Be patient. Take it slow and don't move so quick. Don't jump at the chance of something. Be methodical. And that's a great metaphor for life. Yeah. Like the patience, watching for opportunities. Now, of course, sometimes you can make opportunities happen, but I really love the sitting back and watching for opportunities to arrive. And I always love that Bruce Lee quote. I don't know exactly how it goes, but like, be like water. Like water flows wherever it can. So water finds the easiest way of, it finds the place of least resistance. And I think that's a big part of life, is like letting life happen. And then you find how to maneuver through life with the least amount of resistance. Another great tenet of jiu-jitsu that's really helped me is the mentor system. It's so cool in jiu-jitsu. And I imagine this is true for most martial arts. Like, you come in as a white belt and people help you. Yeah. They teach you, not just the instructor, but people are like, it's friendly. So it's not competition. It's cooperation. Now, you will compete with one another, but it's all friendly and it's all nice. It's all, there's compassion in it. And I love that part of it. I love the cooperation over competition. That I think is where our consciousness is going, where our world is going. That's how our culture is heading, in more of a cooperation. And we're seeing that right now, how the idea of competition in our society compared to cooperation is really struggling to hang on. And I love that, in life, we should be a mentor for somebody. So we should be mentoring, just like in jiu-jitsu. So I'm a blue belt, right? So I help all the white belts. I'm a mentor for them, but I'm also being mentored by all of the higher belts. Yes. But I also have a bunch of people at my level. Yeah. And that trifecta is how your life should be. You should always have people that you're helping to bring up. You should always have somebody helping you rise higher, but you should always be you should always be communing with people who are at your level also. That one for me is huge. Yeah. And if you gave me enough time, I'm sure I could think of about 500 other things that jiu-jitsu has taught me in my life. Let me think of one more before we move on, because there are so many things from jiu-jitsu that are so incredibly helpful. The patience is so important. Simplicity, right? When it comes to jiu-jitsu and martial arts, like you should be, you could do 10 billion moves, right? You could learn every move there is to learn in the history of the sport or the art. But it comes down to like the tenets of the basic things that you should learn. And if you drill those basic things every single day, over and over and over again, a million times, you're going to be a black belt and you're going to be amazing before you know it. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know the fundamentals really, really well. And that speaks to me like every self-help book, everything that is involved in personal development or in business, it all tracks back to the Bible. Yeah. Because the Bible has all the tenets, all of the information, the simple stuff is right there. Like it's simple. It might not be easy to do it all the time, but it's simple. And I think that jiu-jitsu's taught me that too, is like, it is simple, but it's not easy.
Yes. It's not easy. Yeah. I was thinking as you were discussing it, and I agree 100% with everything that you've just said. And if I can add something, it is that jiu-jitsu is it's a technical sport. It's technical. But what is more important, like you've mentioned, is knowing the basics and being able to read a situation, to read if your partner is trying to put you in a chokehold or an armbar. And I think that applies to life and to leadership. Yeah. Yes, we can know all the technicalities of, we can have all the hard skills and everything that we want to build up in leadership. We can do 100 courses. But if you don't have the knowledge to read a situation or a person, or to get everything back to the basic foundation of why we did it, where we are starting, how we are going to start, what direction we want to take, then really sometimes we miss the point. So what I love about jiu-jitsu is what you said. It's actually so simple, but it's so technical, but it's hard. Yeah. Because really it takes you out of that normal way of thinking that you have to learn how to anticipate someone's next move.
And it's all feeling. That's another thing I love too, is like, when you find yourself really doing well is when you're not even thinking about it, which is just like life. Life works so well when you're not thinking about it. You're just doing it. Yeah.
Amen to that. The best fights that we have is the ones that we just go into, and our body, that muscle memory just kicks in and you just go. Yeah. And you go. And it's almost as if it's effortless.
Which is why repetition is repetition's everything. Because the more repetition you have, the more those things become automatic in your life. And I think that's that even applies to spirituality with God. It's like when it's transforming by the renewing of your mind. When you put those basic tenets in your mind over and over and over again, those basic principles over and over and over again, you learn them over and over and over again, then you start to just live out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen. I couldn't agree with you more. Love that. Tell me, Rob, how does self-leadership influence our ability to lead others? We've established that we have to lead ourselves. That is part of being authentic. How does that kind of set the stage for us to lead others? What is it about self-leadership that attracts other people inevitably?
Well, I think it's kind of what we just said about jiu-jitsu and kind of being in the flow.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, and I also, this might get me in trouble with some Christians, I don't know, but I believe in energy, right? Like we're the energy of life. Yeah. Everything is energy when you boil it down from the science standpoint. And I mean, the Bible proves it too. The manifest is created from the unmanifest. The seen, it comes from the unseen.
Yeah.
So self-leadership, having good personal discipline and having good values and morals and making that a core component of your life, you show up differently. You act differently. You speak differently. You sound differently. You speak with confidence. You don't speak with like you might know something. You know something.
Yes.
When you know something, nobody can do anything to you. They can't touch that thing that you know. They no longer. And I love that about because I used to really I was very controlled externally. So if somebody had a different idea than me or something that sounded better, I might adopt their idea. Yeah. But once you start learning truth, and I think that's the core component of being a true leader too, is knowing truth. And once you start understanding truth, and not like objective truth, but the real truth, like the laws of the universe, the laws of the Bible, the things that have been around forever.
Yeah.
Then nothing can touch you. You really don't have to wonder, am I right or am I wrong? Because you just know. And there's still going to be situations where you have to do some soul searching. As I'm not perfect by any means. I'm doing lots of soul searching as we speak. But
same.
I think that's kind of the point of life. But man, when you start to really get those tenets and you know, and you're living out of that flow of your life where you've done the reps and sets enough to where it becomes automatic. Then it becomes automatic to the people around you that they're attracted to you. I hate to say the law of attraction idea, but it is kind of that idea that you're going to meet people where you're at.
Yes.
Life is not happening to you. Life is happening for you. So if life is happening for you, then wherever you are at in life, you're going to bring more of that to you. So if you think, why are bad things coming to me? Why does it seem like my life is in this constant state of chaos, turmoil, or whatever? Well, there's something that you're doing that is bringing those things to you. And I just like that because that gives me personal responsibility. I don't want to give responsibility away to other people or to the world itself. I like to take responsibility for that. Whether that makes 100%, whether that makes sense to me 100% right now or not, I love to believe that tenet because I know that it's true. That answer the question? I don't know.
It did. And I was thinking about a conversation that I actually had with Michael LeBlanc earlier today. And it was about energy and the fact that, in the 80s, if we mentioned the word energy or universe or manifest in those days, people would be like, what are they talking about? What is this?
Insane asylum or something.
Yeah. And really, if you look at the Bible, look at the science in the Bible and how God created everything and how everything really is energy. Inevitably, over the years, people have come to realize they only feared what they did not understand.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that, we have to look at these concepts in leadership as well. What energy are you carrying? I said to Michael, when we walk into a room, you carry a certain energy with you. What is that energy? Is it going to attract people to you? Are they going to feel drawn to you and your leadership? Do they want to know more? Or are you struggling with unresolved issues and you push them away, not knowing why? Some people don't want to follow you. So really, again, back to the self-leadership, self-influence, self-image, self-love. And we do attract, the universe, in my opinion, reciprocates what we give it. If I get up in the morning and I say it's going to be amazing, today is going to be amazing, I'm going to have an amazing day. But the opposite is also true. Yeah.
Yeah. We have the power, and the power is in the tongue, right? So what you say to yourself. And I think these conversations also are extremely important. So anybody who's, watching this and who is not having conversations like this, not saying you have to do a podcast, but you need to have deep conversations, meaningful conversations, I believe, on a daily basis. For me, it picks me up, it lifts me up, it just makes me, because whenever you have to talk about something, especially if you have to teach something, it really cements it in your mind, and man, it reinforces it so much more. So if you're not having meaningful conversations on a daily basis, if you have one person in your life that you can have a meaningful conversation with, do it. every day for 10 minutes. And if you don't know anybody, then go on YouTube and start watching videos and finding content from amazing people who provide that information. And then, you could easily just join the Connected Leaders Academy or find some sort of group online where people come together who are like-minded, like yourself, Jay, and everybody I've talked to in the Connected Leaders Academy. I'm inspired by every single conversation. And you couldn't ask for anything better than that, in my opinion.
I agree with you completely. Thank you so much. And it is important that we listen to these wholesome conversations. Absolutely. Because we learn, maybe it's something, maybe it's a phrase or a word that someone says, and something in your mind, in your situation, in your leadership journey just clicks.
Yeah.
And you are just the better for it. So I agree with you completely. And it brings me to, and you were talking about the Connected Leaders Academy and the CLA, which I am very happy to be a part of with you. Who is your role model when you think of leadership? Who can you bring to the table to say, this is the person that is my role model?
That's a really good question. Who is my role model when it comes to leadership? A few people come to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I would put Jesus on that list as a role model. That's pretty darn good leadership he did there. He did it pretty well. My mentor, I mentioned Ray Overdorf. I would put him on that list. His leadership is phenomenal. The things he's done with his life is amazing. Somebody that who's gotten a bad rap over the years, but I always admired Arnold Schwarzenegger when I was a kid.
Oh, yes.
And Schwarzenegger, as far as like self-leadership, I don't know about him being like he was definitely a leader, trailblazer, right? I look at him as like, man, somebody who had such amazing leadership skills for himself, the level of confidence he had in himself and the level of, he would get things done.
Yeah.
Really was very impressive to me. Trying to think if there's anybody else on that list that would be, I'd hate to leave somebody out that's close to me and I'd hurt their feelings. I'm trying to think of somebody else who I'd say has just amazing leadership skills. Peggy Caruso, another one of my mentors, she's also in the group. She's in the CLA. She's an incredible leader. She got me into coaching. She got me into the CLA. She has done a lot. Now I've only known Peggy for about 2 years, right? So I've probably known her since I've started this coaching journey. And boy, she is a great leader. Because when I mentioned earlier about people who will call you out on your stuff and they'll kind of hold you accountable for what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. When they see flaws, they lovingly correct you. She is an amazing leader in that regard. Well, she will give me tough love that I really need to hear.
Awesome.
And I really value that a lot. So off the top of my head, I'd name those four.
I love that. And I have to say, I never thought of it. But now that you mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger, I mean, he was one of our favorite actors growing up. And the leadership is shown through in the bodybuilding phase that he went through. Then he was a very good leader in the movie industry, and also moving beyond that, going into politics. So he's just a good example of someone that really transformed themselves and adapted to the seasons in their lives to bring out all the leadership abilities that they had. So I've never thought about it, but thank you for opening that up to me. Yeah, he is absolutely a wonderful leader.
And one of the things I think for him and this might be the part that is the biggest leadership part to me, is he brought fitness basically to America. I mean, if you think about like bodybuilding and gyms, like before Schwarzenegger, there weren't even really gyms like there are now in America. And he kind of, I'm not going to say he brought them here, but he played a huge role in that. He played a huge role in fitness in our culture. And it might have been like the muscled up steroid kind of fitness. But he brought that mindset to our culture and the discipline and things that he brought through that. The reason I name him is because my dad loved Schwarzenegger. So I watched his movies whenever I was a young child. Whether I should have been watching them or not, I did. But then as I got older and I learned more about how he did what he did and how he brought like fitness to America in a whole new way was really amazing to me. Incredible.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. He is an incredible person. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And we thank him for, his selfless giving to other leaders and building up other people and, the future generations. I agree with you completely. Yeah. Which brings me to the next question. What leadership values do you make a point of highlighting when you are working on a project specifically?
What kind of project do you mean?
It can be a team building project. It can be a work project. It can be beta testing, maybe on your podcast. Who do you like to surround yourself with? What values do you want to see in those people that are working with you?
There's two simple ones that pop out as very easy to name, and that is asking questions and listening. Active listening. I think a great leader is able to listen really well and is able to ask the right questions. And asking questions might be the most important thing, the most important leadership skill.
Yeah.
Because if you don't ask the right questions, then you're not going to get the answers. Then you can't apply the answers. Yeah. Plus, asking questions builds relationships, right? So when you're asking the right questions, you're going to be building relationship. Say that it might be with yourself personally. If you're a boss and you're working with people, you're asking the right questions. You're going to build relationship with them and understand them better. And relationship is the most, important things in our lives. Like we're people, and we all have relationships with one another. Most importantly, we have relationships with ourselves. The most important person to have a relationship with is you. Now, of course, having a relationship with God is an extremely important relationship. But if you're thinking, and I'll do this myself. So Ray taught me this. This is a really good, just personal thing that can be applied to anything. But asking yourself, why am I so? Or asking God, why am I so? And I try to help people with this because the magic of questions is that you cannot ask a question and not get an answer. Now, you could ask a question and somebody might not say the answer out loud, but they have to think of the answer.
Yeah.
So when you ask yourself a question, you also have to think of an answer. So if you're constantly asking yourself, why am I so stupid? Why am I always screwing up? Why, then you're answering those questions and your subconscious mind's going to think of answers as to why you're a big idiot. But if you're asking yourself, why am I so amazing? God, why am I so worthy of all the things you've given me? Why am I so worthy of love? God, why am I so talented? Why am I so special? Why does my life have so much meaning? Simple questions like that. Why am I so intelligent? Why am I so strong? Why am I so perseverant? You cannot ask those questions without your subconscious mind giving you an answer.
Wow.
So asking yourself those questions is so important, and asking people in your life those questions. So when I'm coaching people, I try to ask as many questions as possible. I sometimes get caught up in telling and teaching, but I know I'm at my best when I'm asking the right question to help somebody reveal the answer for themselves. Because if you tell somebody something, then the answer came from you. But if you ask somebody something and get them to reveal the answer for themselves, the answer came from them. And if they find the answer themselves, then that's far more powerful than you telling them.
I agree with that. I like to, because I always say and I resonate with 100% with what you said. I always do the following. I always say out loud, how much better can this day get? Because then I know I'm putting it out there in the universe, and the universe will surprise me.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, you're going to get that answer. How much better can this day get? And believe you me, it works. there's sometimes wonderful, fun opportunities and surprises coming my way just because I asked that question. How much better can this day get? And what is the universe going to do? It's going to answer me.
Yes. So now you are looking for ways the day is going to get better, and vice versa. If you say to yourself, God, could this day get any worse? Sure, it can, and it probably will,
So audience, don't say that. Don't ask how much worse can the day be. Just ask how much better can this get?
How much better can...
Because people say that without thinking of what they are saying.
Yeah.
And they draw that to them then, because the universe is going to answer.
Most certainly. Yeah. That's really good.
My next question is, does a leader put him or herself first? And this is a tricky one. First in a situation or last?
You have to put yourself first. I always think of the airplane, that whole concept that if the airplane's going down and those little mouth things pop from the ceiling. I can't think what they're called for some reason, but you wouldn't. The mouth, the oxygen mask. Yeah. There we go. The mouth thing. You'd put it on yourself first, so you have air. Then you put it on your kid next to you. So it's just just that classic. I always keep that in mind when I'm like, who do I put first here? No, I have to come first. It has to be me, and then yeah.
I love that answer. I love it. What's next for you, Rob? I know you had a podcast, and I'm sure you have something to tell the audience, which I find very exciting. What is next for you?
So next for me, I'm restarting. I did a podcast for a long time. I had like 400 episodes, and it was kind of directionless. So I stopped doing it a number of years ago. So I'm going to restart it under the title that's right up here, Lead, Impact, Transform, which is the name of my company. So I'm going to start a podcast around that and interviewing people like you. So that's next on my list. Continue to coach, right? And I love speaking, obviously. I love communicating. It's a big part of my life, and I'm re-embracing that part of my life. So I already make a lot of content online. I already, make a lot of videos, and that's a part of what I do. Yeah. We're hosting a conference coming up in October for Gen Z to help people in general understand Gen Z better. We're doing that in central Pennsylvania where I live. And that's the idea, is to get people not reintegrated, but to help people understand the newer generation and to see that there's a generation out there that's very misunderstood, that actually is very, very purpose-driven. Yeah. They're super resilient. They're very purpose-driven, and they're really, really good people. And, part of my mission moving forward, I think, is to work with more kids, to work with more students. I love working with teenagers and students, college students, even younger. I feel that, like I said earlier, so many people get so little encouragement, and that includes kids. And I feel there's a part of myself that really would love to go back and receive what I have to give now. That's why I love giving that to kids and building them up. So I think a newer phase of my life is going to be making sure that I gear my coaching and my content towards children and teenagers and college age students, because before 25 your brain's still developing, so there's a lot of chance for change in those younger years, and so much of the content out there right now is just not helpful. So I just want to make more of an impact in the world. I want to make more of a splash and really help people get on the right track before they're stuck on the wrong track.
That's wonderful. And that age group is often overlooked.
Yeah.
And their needs and their concerns are also often overlooked.
Yeah.
Because they're misunderstood.
Right.
And if you understand them, how much better? Yeah.
For some reason, I have some sort of like really strong connection. I just get along with kids really well. I feel like I still am a kid. Like I volunteer at my church downstairs, and I love hanging out with little kids. I volunteer with the youth organization of teenagers. I love talking to them. I I volunteer with a mentorship program at my local college, and I love working with college kids. I connect well with younger generations, and I know that. So I'm like, why am I not? And that's one of the reasons I think I did well in radio too. I was in top 40 radio, which was like newer music. And I always had kids calling me, and then I had their parents calling me. And I feel that I have a unique ability because I still feel so connected to being a kid. I have a unique ability to really help and serve them.
That's wonderful. And I'd like to say that that's an anointing. It's a special anointing, especially for people our age already. Because other people our age don't always have the time or the patience with children of that age. And a large part of my ministry was working with youth. It still is. And I always say that they are the church of the future, and we have to invest into them. We have to understand them. We have to know what makes them tick so that we can minister to them. So I commend you on that. That's amazing. You don't often find that. Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing is the most simple thing ever, right? Like what I just today did a presentation on this for like an organization. Yeah. And they were asking like, what do kids need? What is Gen Z looking for in the workforce? What are they looking for when it comes to help with their mental health? Yeah. And it's the most simple thing ever. It's relationship. They want relationship with people. They need mentors. They need adults who know what's going on, to tell them the truth, to be truthful with them, and to help guide them. It's really going back to jiu-jitsu. It's simple, but it can be, I guess, to me, it doesn't seem difficult, but it's simple. It's just so simple. Like we need each other, and especially the younger generation, because they're so sucked into their phones. They went through COVID and they were stuck in their house and, didn't get a chance to interact with others. They need adults who are good leaders, who are good people, to help them.
Agreed.
Build relationship.
Agreed. I always tell the youth that I work with, the teenagers, I always tell them, you are dependent when you are a child in the home. Then you go to university and you become independent in a sense, but you must always realize you will forever be interdependent. You will always need other people to help you along your road, and you help other people. And I also teach them not to burn bridges. I teach them to communicate, because when they burn bridges, it's because there's a lack of communication and understanding. Yep. So we'll always be interdependent with each other. And I think that's a good concept for them to get used to, because, when they go through things in their home life, they always say, I'm dependent on my parents now, but one day I'm going to go work, through the counseling, they tell me this, and then I'm going to be independent and I'm not going to need anyone. It never works like that. We need each other. There's always something we can learn from each other. As in jiu-jitsu, our peers that are at the same belts as us, we do the same kind of activities. We know the same grips and holds and arm bars. Then there's the developed ones. We need them to teach us more. And then the ones that we are teaching. So coming back to the jiu-jitsu analogy that you used, we will always be interdependent in everything we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've heard from many young adults this term lone wolf, especially from guys. I'm just a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. They're so disenchanted by women. They feel like that women are different, or there's this weird thing going on, and I don't know what it is exactly. It's like where they seem so beaten down by women. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is about. I seem to come across it more often than not. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. It's not the women it's not the girls in your life.
Yeah.
Your girlfriends. It's your approach to it and how you're looking at it. And then they get this concept, like, I'm going to be a lone wolf. Like, I don't need anybody. I'm going to go do this on my own. And I'm like, well, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're going to pull yourself further down into a hole that's harder to get out of. You need people. And you need good girls in your life. Stop chasing after girls that are not good for you. And also, you need to be good. If you want goodness in your life, you need to be good. So you've got to work on yourself. And I try to get that message across, but it works. It works. Planting seeds. That's all you can do is plant seeds.
planted the seed. That's amazing. That is to starting now, planting those seeds, making leaders for tomorrow. And my last question would be, do you have any words of wisdom for the audience? We've had such a lovely session with you. What do you want to leave them with?
I would like to leave them with the fact that to believe that you are worthy of whatever it is that you want in your life.
Yeah.
Believe that God does have a plan for you, does have something very special. You were given a unique gift. Yeah. Whatever that gift is, you have to uncover that gift. Ask God what it is. And there's going to be signs all throughout your life of what that gift is. Yeah. Uncover it, find out what it is, and then go after it. Use that gift in whatever capacity it is, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're just working for somebody else. You can use that gift every day, all day. Build relationships and ask the right questions. Always be planting seeds in people's lives and always be asking questions to know more and never be afraid. Yeah. Never be afraid to uncover an uncomfortable truth about yourself.
Wonderful words of wisdom. And I know the audience will agree with me that it was fabulous to have you on Meticulous Moments. Thank you so much for that importation of all the information that you've given us of yourself, your leadership journey, your stories. We have thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh my goodness, Jay. I can't say thank you enough. I thank you so much for asking me to come on, just for, I've known you now for a short amount of time, but you're a wonderful person, and I feel honored to come on here and talk, and it just feels great. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I deeply appreciate that with all my heart. And I'm going to be sharing your details at the end of the session. So for anyone in the audience that wants to reach out to Rob, please do so, network with him. And Rob, we are going to be cheering you on, Rob Z, on your new ventures and everything that you're doing, because you're an exceptional leader. Thank you so much. And to the audience, thank you for joining us. Until we meet again. Goodbye.
Thank you. See ya.